Sean Payton is a cold-blooded mofo. Dropped the Saints like a bad habit when shit got hot in the kitchen. He's not that different than any other person at a job that they feel like is going down and they want something better. But you just don't see that generally in the NFL with a guy that's been somewhere as long as Sean Payton has been. We'll talk about that today. Several other topics. We'll get to your comments later on in the show. Social media maneuvers. It's Wednesday. We going raw dog today. You know how we do. 233rd installment of the Louie T Network podcast starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by the Card Collector Series. Join me, your man, Louie T, on my journey back into the card collecting space with the Card Collector Series on YouTube. Link is in the description. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 233rd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Lot to get to on today's show. We've seen some GMs get hired, and once those dominoes start to fall, now we're going to start to see head coaches be hired. The Giants have a GM. We talked about that. They were the first domino to fall, and I told you once that first domino gets knocked down, boop, the rest start to tumble. So now we've seen 3 teams hire GMs. Vikings have hired a GM. The Bears have hired a GM. I believe the Bears have hired a GM, if I'm not mistaken, and the Giants have hired a GM as well. We're still waiting on one more team with a GM vacancy, I believe. Raiders. I think that's the only team left with a GM vacancy that hasn't filled theirs. And then we still haven't had a single coach hired yet. I surmise that that's going to come to an end, if not tomorrow. I think someone gets hired tomorrow. If not tomorrow, definitely by Thursday, I think we're going to start to see those head coaching dominoes start to fall. We've heard a guy that I'm very fond of in Jim Caldwell potentially being in the mix in Chicago after they hired their GM, and now they're ready to go hire their head coach. And Jim Caldwell is a guy that I thought got a raw deal in Detroit, and we've talked about the black head coach and the plight of the black head coach. And that's one of the guys that I felt like got one of the rawest deals, when he got canned after going 9-7. Again, fans always want more, but they fail to take into account history. And that's the thing that always bugs me with a lot of fan bases is they live in the now and the present day, and they don't think about how they got to the point where they're at and where they're potentially going. And I used to say it to the Cowboys fans all the time that wanted to get rid of Tony Romo. I'm like, you do remember what it was like when you had Chad Hutchinson and Quincy Carter and Drew Henson and Vinny Testaverde and Drew Bledsoe. Like, you do remember what it was like prior to Tony Romo, right? Like, you can go back to that. Now, they never did. They got Dak Prescott, and so they're in a good position. However, it's so easy to go back to that. Like Cleveland Browns, remember the conversation around Baker Mayfield? Oh, maybe we should move on from Baker and go where exactly? Do you remember what it was like before you got Baker? Because you can go back there if you'd like. I can give you some Case Keenum. He's on your bench right now. You can start him. See how your season goes. So it's so easy to want to get rid of a guy. And the Lions fans didn't understand. I'm like, you do realize you haven't had a coach go 500 or better in back-to-back years since I can't remember when. Maybe it can't be Wayne Fonts, right? Maybe it's Bobby Ross. Maybe it's Bobby Ross in the mid-90s. You haven't had a coach go back-to-back years of 500 or better in eons. And this guy pretty much did that, and you fired him. And I felt like it's the curse of Jim Caldwell ever since. They haven't won anything. They haven't even remotely close to winning anything of note since Jim Caldwell's departure in Detroit. And good riddance. That's what they deserve. So hopefully Jim Caldwell gets another opportunity. And I think the reason he may get an opportunity in Chicago, and it's not etched in stone, because I hope the Bears don't do the thing that is a monumental mistake when you have a young quarterback. I used to be a proponent of, hey, get the guy that makes the most sense for your franchise at that time. Now I am a guy that if you've got a young quarterback, there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to get him a young offensive-minded guy. You cannot get a defensive coach and say, hey, I'll get a hot coordinator, because that hot coordinator is going to ultimately get a head coaching job. And then your young quarterback is going to have his head spinning because he's going to get another offensive coordinator and have to learn a whole new system. And you don't want to do that to Justin Fields. Okay. He's already had a terrible play caller in Matt Nagy. He's already got his brains bashed in once already. You don't want to have him go through that same trauma if you go and get a Dan Quinn or a Brian Flores or someone that is defensive minded. Go and get this man an offensive-minded guy like a Jim Caldwell that's going to help develop, nurture him, and get him where he needs to be at the NFL level as a quarterback. Don't get him a defensive coordinator that's going to be more focused on the offensive, defensive side of the football. Go get a nice coordinator, but that guy ends up doing a great job and gets a head coaching job, and now your quarterback's left to fend for himself. Don't do that. I hope they don't do that in Jacksonville. I hope they don't do that in Chicago. Anywhere else, feel free to hire whomever you like. If the Giants want to hire a defensive-minded guy as a head coach, knock yourself out. And I don't know if you heard Joe Schoen and what he said, but he said that they're going to roll with Daniel Jones, essentially. He didn't actually say those words out of his mouth, but he said, we're going to surround Daniel Jones with the pieces necessary to be successful. I think they've already somewhat done that. Now they just have to figure out what kind of an offense best suits him and get a better play caller in there and all of those good things. But we'll see. Daniel Jones, there's always his rookie season. If you want to believe in Daniel Jones, yeah, he fumbled a ton in that rookie season. And yeah, it was 13 interceptions. It was also 27 touchdown passes. Like, there is always that rookie season with Daniel Jones. There's always that Tampa Bay game where he brought him back. Like, there are flashes of Daniel Jones can do it. That New Orleans game this year where you go, what in the hell? And then there, and every time he plays Washington, he plays like $1 million. So we'll see what happens with Daniel Jones. Looks like they're going to hold on to him, which it's good for a team like Washington that needs a quarterback. Even though this isn't the draft class, which is part of the reason I think the Giants are holding on. If the Giants were in this position last year with the draft class of quarterbacks, I guarantee you they wouldn't have been singing the same tune. They would have been going in a different direction other than Daniel Jones. They would have been non-committal. That GM would have come in and said, hey, we like the pieces we have here, and we're going to evaluate every position the same. He would have gave us some, GM speak bullshit that essentially was saying, nah, we don't believe in Daniel Jones. And we'll rectify that. We got, a couple of top 10 picks. We'll find a way to make this work. So they're not going to do that. Sounds like they're going to go in a different direction, or could be smoke and mirrors. This is lying season. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's backed by me, your man, Louie T, you know what it is. But more likely than not, I think the G-men are actually going to roll with Daniel Jones. And I don't have a problem with that. Still got 2 years of service on that rookie contract. Why not see what you got? Anyway, I digress. Enough of talking your head off. Let's get to the proceedings this evening, and let's get to the gem dropping session, shall we? I think we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So Sean Payton, the word came down and hit the streets like Sunday night as that ridiculous AFC divisional round playoff game between the Bills and the Chiefs was wrapping up. We started to get little innuendos out there in the wind. Sean Payton might be gone. Sean Payton might be gone. And I'm like, Sean Payton? Where is this coming from? Anyway, I dismissed it because I'm like, Sean ain't going nowhere, man. He been in New Orleans since like 07, man. That brother ain't going nowhere. 05, 06, something like that. He ain't going nowhere. Then I looked at that salary cap situation. I looked at that quarterback situation. And I looked at Sean Payton, and he looked like a man defeated. He looked beat up and worn down. Like, you know what? I don't need this shit. I'm Sean Payton, goddammit. I can snap my fingers and get me another gig. I don't need this shit. And I said, Sean, this is home though, bro. They rescued you from the ranks of assistant and made you the head guy. You won a Super Bowl here. This is your home. You're idolized. You're immortalized here. You've helped build this roster. You make the Saints a competitor every year. And he's like, yeah, that was with Drew Brees. Now they got me with a whole bunch of funny lookings at quarterback. We don't have any cap space. As a matter of fact, we like 40 some odd million over the cap. And our situation is pretty damn dire. And they want me to clean this shit up. I'm sick and tired of having to do some kind of magnificent job like what Sean Payton did last year. You say what you want. For them to go 9-8 with the shit that he went through, Jameis Winston going down early in the season, having to start Trevor Siemian for about 4 games, then having Taysom Hill in and out of the lineup due to injuries. They had to start Ian Book on a Monday night, for God's sake. He got crushed. They got destroyed. And they still went 9-8. Still went 9-8. That is a hell of a job if I've ever seen one done by Sean Payton. And when I first heard he was moving on from New Orleans, I said, damn, heat got real hot in the kitchen. And he was like, I don't got time for this shit. It's 400 degrees. Juve in that kitchen. And he's like, nah. Juve was like, you want me to turn it up to 500? He's like, nope, I'm out. And it caught me off guard. Because you don't see, like, you would never see Bill Belichick bail on the Patriots because shit got tough. Like, after last year, not this past season, but last year when they were at their lowest point. And you could argue when Brady left and they had no cap space, if Belichick said, hey, I'm out, I'm gonna turn it over to my son, you'd be like, damn, I was cold-blooded, Bill. You left your son in some shit. But Belichick would never do that. Most people, when they go somewhere, they want to leave it in a much better position than when they got there. And I'm not saying Sean Payton hasn't done that, but their cap situation, they don't have a quarterback. They're in a pretty rough spot. Michael Thomas, who the hell is Michael Thomas? And when's the last time you seen that man on an NFL field? I forgot what he looks like. I don't even know what jersey number he wears anymore. I kid. But seriously, like, they got nothing out there in New Orleans. For real. Seriously. And he went 9-8. Their defense is legit. Their offense, I just, that's kind of hard for me to stomach that he just decided to bail. It felt like he just bailed on them. It got rough. It got tough. It got rugged. And he said, I'm out. But that's not any different than you or me or anybody else out here working a job, and we're working for an organization or a company, and we've been with them for a while, but the pandemic really had them fall on hard times, and you see this shit is going down, it's going belly up, and you're like, I could stay here, stick it out like the Titanic. I know this ship is sinking, but I've been here for a long time, and I'm going to just try to help them out of this rut. Or you could say, you know what? I got to protect myself. I got to save me. And so this ship is sinking. I won't sink with it. I'm getting the hell out of here and go find you a new gig. That's essentially what Sean Payton did. And 95% of you out there would do the same thing and wouldn't even think twice about it. There's no loyalty these days. You know, back in the day when our parents worked at some steel mill or some factory or some warehouse, they did that shit for 30 years, got, a pension, and that was it. They only worked 1 or 2 jobs, and that was it. That is not how things go today at all. People find jobs like they change underwear. Boom, boom, boom. One day they're working for Amazon, the next day they're working for Google. That's how the shit goes right now. So I'm not mad at Sean Payton. I'm just surprised. So what does this mean for the Saints, and what does this mean for Sean Payton? Let's start with the Saints. So for me, I remember I told you that I ranked the jobs, and I said the Houston Texans job is the worst job out there because their draft capital situation isn't ideal. Now, again, they trade Deshaun Watson. That changes immediately. But their draft capital situation is in the dumps. Their cap situation isn't the best, but they're starting to clean that up, but it's not the best. And they don't have a ton of talent. You know, they've got an old roster. They need a lot of help, and that's the problem with not having draft capital. You got an old roster, and you can't turn it over to new guys because you don't have any first and second round picks because you've given a lot of them away when Bill O'Brien was there. You know, so that's a bad spot to be in. You know, the Texans job, you got Davis Mills. You're not sure about him. It's a tough job. It's a tough spot to be in as a GM, and to find a coach that wants that job, even though, you know, it's only 32 of these. Somebody's going to want the job, but you may want a candidate. He may not want you in your job. So where I would slot this Saints job is probably somewhere in that 6 range. I think the Texans, and I believe I put the Giants or the Bears at 7. And I would put it somewhere in that neighborhood with the Giants, the Bears, and the Texans. These are all jobs that I think this is worse than the Bears job, because it's similar to the Bears job, except the Bears at least have Justin Fields. Even if you don't believe in Justin Fields, at least they have him. The Saints have no one. The Saints have no one. And they pushed all their chips to the center of the table to try to win a Super Bowl by signing all these guys to hefty contracts. And they're talented football players, but now they're in over their head in cap. They're going to have to cut bait with some of these players, restructure some deals, try to get themselves back to a healthy spot in the cap. And every year the Saints were always playing with fire. Every year you'd look up and the Saints either had, you know, $247,000 of cap space left at the end, while, you know, teams out here flaunting $32 and $24 million left of cap space. Saints barely got any cap space. But that's what happens when you're good, is you barely have any cap space because you got to re-sign your guys. You go out and add a veteran here or two to try to help you get over the top. And unfortunately for them, it didn't happen. And now they are in cap hell. And you don't have a quarterback. And you don't have a bunch of offensive talent. It's literally Alvin Kamara. I do like Antonio. I do like Callaway. But that's really it, man. I mean, I like their tight end too, but he's still young and he's still developing. Jawan Johnson. But I mean, it's not a lot there that gets you excited with that Saints team. It really isn't offensively. You know, it's Alvin Kamara, and it's just a bunch of dudes, honestly, if we're keeping it a buck. So if Michael Thomas comes back and he's the Michael Thomas of old, great. But who's getting him the football? You know, like the Saints will probably, and I mean, they could re-up on Jameis. I mean, obviously, you know, that's an option. They could just bring Jameis Winston. But the reason Jameis was going to work in New Orleans is because he was under Sean Payton, and he had been in that same offensive scheme for the last, you know, going on 3 years now, 2 years prior to this. So that's why Jameis was supposed to work. Now you bring a new guy in, Jameis is starting all over from scratch. I don't know if that's necessarily what you want to do, but I mean, there aren't any better options out there if you're the Saints. What are you going to do? So, yeah, I would put that job pretty much right above the Texans job because that defense is still worthy. That's the only thing that you feel good about. But if you can't score points, it doesn't matter how good your defense is. You're not going to win in today's NFL. Again, this is not 2000. This is not 1995. You're not going to shut teams down. Jacksonville did it twice this year, and they still went, you know, 4-13 or whatever they went. You know, they shut down the Bills, they shut down the Colts, but you can't win consistently doing that. You know what I mean? Like that, this Saints team is in trouble. So that's their future right now. And in the short term, they're going to take a massive step back. I don't see them making the playoffs for the next 3-4 years. You know, easy. They get a quarterback in there, and they could change, you know, turn things around very rapidly, but I don't see them making a postseason for the next 3-4 years. Easy. Because they got some shit to clean up there. And Sean Payton knew that, and I think that's why he bailed. As for Sean Payton, now, you know, what was interesting is, so I was having a conversation with Boss. Boss is my dad. Obviously, he's a Cowboys fan. You guys know this. I've told you this numerous times. And we were having the conversation about Dallas and Mike McCarthy. He said, you told me that this dude was a clown from day one, and I didn't want to believe you. But you were right. He's a clown. And he said all the major networks, and my dad is one of these. He's like y'all. My dad sits around and watches First Take and, you know, Fox Sports 1 and all of it. He watches all of these channels and all of these talking heads. And, you know, he's in tune to what Stephen A is talking about and what Damian Woody is talking about and what Ryan Clark is talking about. He's into all of that stuff. I'm not. So he was bringing to my doorstep some of what he was hearing on ESPN. He said, look, I think they're going to get his ass fired. I said, who, McCarthy? He's like, yeah. He said, these media types, man, they are going after his ass heavy. I mean, they are really pouring it on thick. And they even said that they think we should go after Sean Payton. And then I didn't even think when Sean Payton got decided to move on, it didn't even dawn on me that, hey, Dallas is in play. That's his old stomping grounds. Like, I didn't think about it in that light. The Giants is his old stomping ground, the Cowboys, because he's a disciple of Bill Parcells. But then I stopped and I said, two things, boss. This is why he'll never show up in Dallas. Number one, he's a disciple of Bill Parcells. And I asked my dad, I said, who is his mentor? Sean Payton. Who's his mentor? My wife said, Bill Parcells. I said, look at you knowing something, girl. I love it when she talks football, man. Oh, man. Anyway, my dad said, Bill Parcells, ain't it? I said, yeah, it is. I said, and you think if he called up Bill and said, hey, Jerry offered me the job, should I take it? What do you think Parcells going to tell him? Hell no, don't take that job, because you ain't getting no control. You will have no say-so over anything. Jerry wants a puppet. We all remember the famous line from Bill Parcells. If you want me to cook dinner, at least let me shop for the groceries. You'll never be able to shop for any groceries in Dallas. You're just a talking head. You're a figurehead holding a place as a placeholder. You're not really pulling the strings except for on game day. That's it. If you're the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, as long as Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are alive, this is how they're going to run their organization. So that's number one. Number two, Sean Payton has the chops to call his shot. He's one of these guys that has earned the right to have a coach-centric job thrown at his feet. So what I'm talking about is one of these jobs where there's really not a GM in place, or there's like this sort of, kind of pseudo GM, but really, if you get the job, you're in control. Sort of like Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. They hired him, and then he hired John Lynch to be his GM. Sort of like John Gruden in Vegas when he was employed there. They hired him. He then hired Mike Mayock as his GM. Same thing with Washington with Ron Rivera. They hired him. He then hired Martin Mayhew as his GM. He's earned the right to have a coach-centric approach where they can hire him and say, you know what? And there's still a place like Vegas, for instance, makes a ton of sense for Sean Payton, where they can say, hey, we don't even have a GM. You come in here, you take over, and you pick the GM. And for me, if I'm Sean Payton, that's the perfect place for him to go, because they're ready to win. They just came off of a postseason, appearance. They got a veteran quarterback. They got a ton of weapons, and you can add to those weapons. You got no GM there, so you can call the shots. And they've got one of those laissez-faire owners in Mark Davis. Hands off. You hire a guy that you trust, that you think knows football, and Mark Davis just steps out of the way. He doesn't want any smoke because he doesn't know a damn thing about football. All he knows is the business side of things. So he steps out of the way. He's not like his dad. He's like, yo, if you want it, you got it. That's what he did with John Gruden, and ultimately, shit hit the fan with him, and he had to move on from him. But I think he's willing to do it again, because he really doesn't want anything to do with, the football operations. He'd rather let somebody come in there and figure all of that shit out. So I think Vegas right now is the last place with no GM. Everybody else has filled that vacancy. I think he has earned the right to be a coach-centric guy, where you build around him and he can build his own front office and do it the way he wants, pick his own players. I think Sean Payton is going to end up somewhere if he wants to coach. And he does. He's already said he's still open to coaching. He may take a year off. Anytime a guy of his stature takes a year off, their stock goes up even higher. Like, literally, you could get paid 2 times whatever you were going to get paid before. And you're the hottest commodity out there, because all anybody's going to be talking about when they're ready to fire their coach, hey, we need to go get Sean Payton. So if he decides to sit out a year, he's going to have a lot of people throwing a lot of cash at his feet. However, most of these football lifers like Sean Payton, they can't live without this stuff, man. Andy Reid, as soon as he got fired from Philadelphia, that man went and got that Kansas City job. He could have sat out a year. He was like, nah, I got to work. I need football. Ron Rivera got fired. The minute he got fired, this man started investigating other jobs that were open and figured out, which one do I want to take? And he took the first opportunity that came at him, and that was Washington. Okay. These guys that are football lifers that can't live without it, played in college. Some of them played in the NFL. If not, you coached right away after you were done your playing career in college, which is Sean Payton's deal. Was a quarterback at Eastern Washington, Eastern Illinois, actually. That's the Tony Romo lineage there. It started with Peyton and then it was Tony Romo. I don't see him sitting out a year. I don't. We'll see. But I think he can get any job he wants, honestly. And to me, the one that makes the most sense is Vegas, because he could be in a coach-centric situation, just like John Gruden was before him. I think he could get that same kind of deal in Vegas, where he gets to pick the GM and they move forward from there. So it's interesting, the timing of this, and the decision to walk away from the Saints. I get it. I just didn't see it coming. I got blindsided by this because, again, it's rare to see a coach that's been with one organization. Like, that would be the equivalent of Mike Tomlin after this year, okay? Steelers made the postseason, but they don't have a quarterback, and who knows when they'll find their next franchise quarterback. They've done a really poor job of putting themselves in a position to transition away from Ben Roethlisberger. Their offense is anemic as anemic as it gets. You think a young guy's going to come in there and all of a sudden fix it and inject life into that offense? Highly unlikely. He could leave now and say, you know what? I don't know what their cap situation is. I would assume that it's not great. We don't have a quarterback. Every year, everyone outside of the Pittsburgh market is trying to fire me or trade me. I'm going to just leave because there's 15 other gigs that would love to have me. I'm going to just step out and let y'all figure out what y'all going to do at the coaching position. Like, you don't see that happening. Tomlin's been there forever. Belichick's been in New England forever. They're not going to leave when shit gets tough. They want to fix it. I'm just shocked to see Sean Payton bail like this, but I get it. He's been spoiled. When you got, Drew Brees for as long as he did, he thought, I can do this. I want to prove to everybody, just like Belichick wanted to prove life after Tom Brady doesn't have to be so rough. I can do this. I think Sean Payton wanted to prove he could do it without Drew, and then he realized this shit is a lot tougher than I thought. Okay. This is a lot tougher than I thought, and we don't have any cap space. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. And I don't like Michael Thomas, and he doesn't like me, and I'm sick of his shit, and I don't need this. I'm Sean Payton. Okay. Interesting stuff. Anyway, I digress. Sean Payton is out. Where will he land? We'll see. Plenty of job openings. Now there are 9 vacancies in terms of head coaches. Where will he land? All 9 are open, but only one doesn't currently have a GM. And if I'm Sean Payton, I am angling to get the Pete Carroll, Ron Rivera, Kyle Shanahan type treatment, where I go in and I get to pick the groceries. I get to pick everything. I get to pick my GM, my entire front office staff. I get to pick all the coaches, and I have final say in every draft pick and every move that's made because I'm the guy in charge. That's what I would want if I'm Sean Payton, because I've earned the right to be able to call my shots like that. I'm a Super Bowl winning head coach. I've turned water into wine, and I can do it for your organization if you just give me the keys. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to you. In our next segment, social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. So you guys know what it is. If you're out there and you want your comment read, you know how this works. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, super chats are the way to do so. And so with that said, let's get to the comment section. I see a couple of super chats, so we'll knock those out first, and then we will get to your comments. Any other comments? So thank you for the super chat, 1/6 Devil Doc. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB as well. Who writes, Lou, it occurred to me that Warthog can also be a reference to the military. The A-10 Warthog is a military fighter jet. Not saying, just saying. I told you, I'm not moving off of that, even though there are a lot of things that people have brought up and people that I trust that have said, I don't think it's going to have anything to do with hogs. I'm not moving. I already told you, I gave you my logic. I'm sticking to it. I It is what it is. Next week, this time, we will know the name of the team. So we are literally a week away from figuring out the name of this organization and what the new color scheme will look like, what the new jerseys and helmets and everything will look like. And we can all share in it together here on the Louie T Network. I will be live for that coverage. And we'll find out what the hell it's going to be. I told you, I'm done with guessing. I'm done with, doing any detective or sleuth work. I'm over it. I gave y'all my last submission as to what I thought it was, because I told you I don't care. You know that. I don't care. I just want to win. All right. They could call us the dirt bags for all I care. I just want to win. The DC dirt bags. All right, let's roll. All right. I just want to win at the end of the day. If we're still losing, then it doesn't really matter what we look like, what the name is. We still stink. Oh no, we suck again. And then what difference does it make? Whether you're wearing burgundy or blue, green or yellow, orange or teal, if you still stink, who cares? All right. So at the end of the day, Warthog can be a military reference. Someone had told me that before. I'm not, too savvy on military names or anything like that, but I've given you what I think it's going to be. I don't care. I don't have a dog. And it was funny when I gave you my final prediction and I put all the pieces of the puzzle together and I told you this is why I'm drawing the inference that I'm drawing. You would have thought I wanted the name to be Hogs of some sort. I don't give a shit what the name is. People are like, you're wrong, Louie. You're wrong. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to be Hogs. You're not going to get what you want. Hold on. I don't want the name to be anything other than something dumb. They're not going to name it, as I've mentioned already. They're not going to name us the Washington Tampons. I've already said that. We're not going to be the Washington Maxi Pads. They're not going to name us something ridiculous. It may be something that you don't like, but it's not going to be something stupid. At the end of the day, I just want to win. They're not going to embarrass us. Whatever the name is, people are going to come up with some kind of pseudo name to make fun of us. That's what people do. Okay, that's what fans of opposing teams do. They will find a way to make fun of it. So if you're worried about what other fan bases will say when we lose, then you're looking at this all wrong, because they're going to figure out a way to make fun of the name, regardless of whatever it is. So we'll see what it is. Warthogs does have a military connotation to it. So we'll see if that makes any difference. Commanders, hogs, red hogs, warthogs, war hogs, whatever, admirals, whatever, I don't give a shit. Honestly, we'll see, red tails, whatever. We'll know what it is next Wednesday. Thank you for the super chat, 1/6 Devil Doc. Jay Lee, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, talking about history. Remember when Raiders with Pryor and Flynn? You're exactly right. History matters, and Derek Carr trade talks should not be uttered. Exactly my point, Jay Lee. Thank you for that. And that's what I keep trying to tell people, is that they just ignore history and they live in the present time, but they don't harken back to what life was like prior to the guy that's giving you a chance every year. Yeah, he may not be the best, okay? And you look around in your own division, if you're a Raiders fan, and you say, well, they got Herbert and they got Mahomes, he's not good enough. Okay, well, you could be Denver. You want to be Denver and not have a guy at all? You could be Denver, or you could be your former self. As Jay Lee just said, you could be over here with Terrell Pryor trying to play quarterback and Matt Flynn and Jamarcus Russell. You can go back to that. It's not that hard, okay? Get rid of Derek Carr without a plan and see what happens to your quarterback position. It could get real ugly real fast. Understand that. And that's why some of these fan bases are delusional, which is why I try to tell Washington fans, you don't want to get rid of Kirk Cousins. Do you not remember what the last 30 years was like? No, we can do better than Captain Checkdown Kirk. He's a stat stuffer. He chokes in the... Well, all of that shit may be true, but guess what? Until we find a better option, don't get rid of him. Don't get rid of him. And I know, and it was funny that the same people that wanted Kirk out was the same people talking about, well, we got Alex Smith. You think he's better than Kirk Cousins? Is you're sadly mistaken if you do. He's worse than Kirk. Anyway, I digress. Don't be one of those fans in a fan base that neglects to reflect on what it was like prior to the quarterback that you have. Look, I'm not saying don't search for better. Okay, that is not what I am uttering from my lips. What I'm telling you is, as I tell all the young youth of America, before you quit your current job, make sure you got a new one lined up. Before you get rid of Derek Carr, you better have a dude that you believe in already on the roster, not a guy that you're thinking about going and getting. You already better have that dude on the roster. That guy doesn't exist in Vegas right now because it ain't Marcus Mariota. That's for damn sure. Okay. And it wasn't John Gruden's lover boy, Nathan Peterman. It ain't him. Don't be foolish. All right. As a wise man once told me, look, man, don't be stupid. Right jab like Zab Judah. Don't be stupid. All right. Don't be foolish. Be careful. All right. Be careful. That's a good one, Jay Lee. That's a real good one. Thank you for the super chat. Hoodie Jube. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Hoodie Jube writes, there are reporters that said we can save over $90 million in cap space without having to cut anyone. So we will have money to play with. Oh, really? We'll see how that works. You know, first of all, the cap is going up this year. When the new league year starts, the cap is going to go up. Now, I don't know if the Saints are $47 million over the projected cap numbers or if they're over the cap number by $47 million now as we sit here. And then the cap goes up and then they won't be as far over the cap. We'll see. I find it hard to believe that you can be $90 million. You can save $90 million in one offseason. I find that very, very hard to believe. But what you may be able to do is get yourself to a respectable place where you can sign your rookies that you draft, because right now you don't even have the money to do that. Obviously, you'll get to that place. Everyone has to get to a certain place prior to that deadline because you got to sign your rookies that you draft. So you'll make some moves. You may restructure a couple of deals. There may be a couple of guys that are on the roster that will no longer be on the roster. A couple of guys that you'll go to and say, hey, we need you to restructure. And if they say no, you cut them. But that doesn't change the fact that your defense is stout and remarkable and your offense stinks. That doesn't change the fact because you don't have a quarterback. You got Alvin Kamara. Again, I can't tell you what Michael Thomas looks like in a football uniform. So you can't even use him right now as a guy that you can be excited about because we don't know what Michael Thomas looks like on a football field. Haven't seen that guy in pretty much 2 years. So I'd love to add him into the mix, but it's hard for me to do that. And remember, the last time we saw him playing good football, it was with Drew Brees. You're not going to have Drew Brees at quarterback. You know, it might be Winston. It may not be Winston. It may be somebody else. Good luck with that whole situation because you've been spoiled. You haven't really had to deal with this. You know, you haven't been among the teams in the league searching, probing in the quarterback wilderness, looking for that guy. You've had that guy for the better part of the last 15 years. He retired. You thought you were going to pass the baton to Jameis Winston. That didn't work. So we'll see what happens. I don't love the offensive talent on that football team. I love the defense, but the defense can only take you so far. So we'll see what happens in New Orleans. See. Kyle, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Kyle, writes, thoughts on Vikes' new GM seems analytical and smart. So he's one of those guys that rolls through the ranks based off of analytics and really wowing people with his insight and his innovative thought. You know, football is one of those sports that they're caveman thinkers. You know, most of these coaches look at it from an old school lens and they feel like, hey, the analytics is cool, but I got it. And that's fine. But you're seeing more and more teams go to an analytical approach. And owners love that shit. They eat it up. When you can sell an owner on, hey, I'm doing this because owners, they all think analytically. That's how a lot of them made their money. You know, they take the risk and they weigh it next to the reward and they see how all of these things jibe together. And then they make a calculated decision based off of the numbers, off of the data. So when they get a guy that comes in there and says, hey, this is why I'll do this, or this is why I'll do that, it's a lot of times because of the analytics. It's because of the data. This is how I'm going to use this data to make this organization better. Owners eat that shit up. They love it. And, owners also love being innovative and they love new. And so they want to be out in front of things. If something's cutting edge, they want to be a part of that. They want to be a part of someone ushering in a change. And so the Vikings are no different. The Browns have been really at the forefront of this analytics thing with the money ball approach and getting guys that are highly analytical. And you've seen Baltimore and how they approach the game now. And a lot of these teams, the Chargers are the newest team to just say to hell with fourth down. What is that? That's another down to try to get a first down. Don't matter where we are in the field, we're going for it. Well, that's loser football because this isn't a video game, okay? There's certain instances where you go for it on the field. There's certain instances where you go for it because of the team you're playing against. And there's certain instances where you go for it because of time and score and all of those things and the way the game is going. But you can't just randomly say, like Dallas did on the first possession of the game against New England, it's fourth down and we're at our own 30, but what the hell? Let's just go for it. Roll the dice. Who cares? That's loser football, okay? That's how you get your ass beat, okay? There should be a rhyme and a reason to why you're doing what you're doing, and that's what analytics is supposed to be, So he seemingly rose through the ranks. He's not your traditional football guy. We've heard that 15 million times today. He's only been in the NFL space for 9 years, starting out with the Browns, and then I think he moved on to the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. I may have that backwards, or then he ended up in Minnesota. And so highly respected, and everyone's giving this guy glowing recommendations. And, he's got a degree from Princeton. That never hurts. And he's a smart guy by all accounts. And he's going to take a more analytical approach, but he's also been around long enough and learned from enough people that he's got enough football savvy to know how to run an organization. So we'll see. We'll put it to the test. Only been around the NFL for 9 years. Let's see how much he's learned in those 9 years about scouting and the game. And it's one thing to have an analytical approach and how to balance the books and what players should be here, shouldn't be here, things of that nature. But it's a totally different thing to identify talent, to bring this guy here, to not bring this guy here based off of what your eyes tell you. And that's the part that I want to see with him. Because the Vikings have an older roster, which is one of the reasons I told you I didn't necessarily love that job. They got an older roster, but we'll see what he decides to do coming in there and changing things up. It'll definitely be a different approach from Rick Spielman, who was a through and through football guy, a football lifer, and, did things with the old eyeball test, you know what I mean? And so this is going to be a little bit different. Rick Spielman was never one to trade draft picks. He always wanted to acquire as many draft picks as possible. Maybe this GM is willing to wheel and deal to go up and get a guy. Maybe he's willing to do some of the things Rick Spielman wasn't willing to do. Rick Spielman wanted 15 draft picks if he could get it. He wanted the more the merrier. He didn't want to sign any free agents in free agency that often. He really wanted to concentrate on getting his guys and keeping them in Minnesota. Every now and again, he'd spend on a guy like he did with Pierce over 2 years ago. Yeah, every now and again they'll spend. Remember, they splurged on Greg Jennings and it didn't work. So he's always been a guy that didn't like to spend a lot of money in free agency. They always really like to take care of their own guys. So maybe this guy's going to have a different approach. We'll see. But it'll be interesting to see how he decides to change things up in Minnesota, because I think they do need a breath of fresh air in Minnesota. So anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat, Kyle. Got another one here from Hoodie Jube. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Hoodie Jube, who writes, Saints will be just fine. AK, Thomas, O-line, Elite D. We just need another receiver to add on and add quarterback. Jameis Winston, 22. Find a head coach who want to be here and win. You may be right. They may be just fine. I don't believe that to be true because I don't know what's going to happen. I'll tell you this right now. If Brady, and I anticipate Brady will be back. If Brady comes back, then Gronk will more likely than not come back. And if those two are back in the saddle and they'll get, I think they'll find a way to bring back Chris Godwin. He was on a franchise tag, hurt himself. So that's going to be an interesting situation there. But all of that said, if Brady's back, the Bucks will be the team to beat in that division. Carolina stinks right now. They're trying to figure some shit out. Same could be said for the Falcons, even though they made a run at it last year. I was surprised at how well they performed throughout the season. It looked like they were dead 3 different times, and the defibrillator somehow brought them back and made them competitive, down the stretch of the season. So I said all of that to say this. Your division isn't all that great right now. It's not up. So you may be able to get by without having a real true answer at quarterback, just off the strength of your defense and Alvin Kamara. And if Michael Thomas, and again, I'm not using him as a piece of that puzzle because I don't even know if Michael Thomas wants to play football. So I can't speak to what Michael Thomas wants to do or doesn't want to do, or how he's going to look when he comes back, how he's going to play, if he's going to, keep his head focused, because we saw him starting a while on social media when he was playing. And, Michael Thomas is not a part of the equation. He may ultimately be a part of the equation, but he's not for me right now. The O-line is good when it's healthy. The problem is your left tackle's always hurt. He's always hurt. It seems like, you might get 4 or 5 games out of him, then he's hurt again. If you can stay healthy up front, you got some young studs up front on that offensive line. Love your right tackle. Love what you've built in New Orleans on the offensive line. But again, all of that shit is irrelevant if you don't have a quarterback. And so we'll see what happens with this Saints football team. You may be fine. You may be right. I don't believe that to be the case. I think there will be a Sean Payton hangover where that next guy comes in there, and that first year is going to be tough because you've been so ingrained in how Sean Payton does things and how he works. Veterans may have gotten certain days off for practice and things like that. All that shit might be out the window with this next dude. You're going to learn a whole new offense, a whole new defense, because more likely than not, Dennis Allen is gone. So you're going to have to bring in a whole new staff. This defense was dominant under Dennis Allen. Now you get a different defensive coordinator. Maybe this defense takes a step back. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. You can't just say, oh, well, we're keeping the whole staff together. We're just taking Sean Payton out and we're inserting a new coach. That is not what is happening. Everything is going to be brand new. Everything. And I just don't know how they replace Sean Payton, with whom, and what the strategy and philosophy will be. And then it'll be interesting to see how that coach fills his cabinet. What offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator do you bring in? And how do the rest of the players mesh with those coaches? Because Dennis Allen had a special rapport with those players defensively. You lose that now. We'll see what happens in New Orleans. Anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat. Hoodie, Jube. Let's take a few comments. Johnny 68740. Thank you for the comment. Writes, what's up, my guy? Long time no see. Only 1 week left. Indeed. What's up, Johnny? My guy John Perez writes, sucks to see Peyton go, but the Saints are in salary cap hell and they have no quarterback and they are now an official rebuild. They aren't going to contend for a while. I tend to feel that way, but we'll see. As Hoodie Jube said, they got some stuff. But again, all of that stuff is deemed irrelevant if you don't have a quarterback. We've always said, doesn't matter what your roster looks like, what you have or what you don't have. If you don't have a great roster, but you got a quarterback, you got a chance. We saw it with Deshaun Watson. If you do have a great roster, but you don't have a quarterback, then you're the Denver Broncos. And you still don't have a chance. You got to have a quarterback. You got to have a quarterback. Right now, you look like the Denver Broncos. You got this defense that's ready to go, right out of the packaging. You got weapons, and the Broncos have way more weapons offensively than you do. But you look a lot like the Denver Broncos. They haven't been able to find a quarterback since Peyton Manning. You just lost a legend. Maybe you might be going on that roller coaster where you might not be able to find a quarterback after Drew Brees. You could really be in for a rude awakening, Hoodie Jube. Like, I think you got spoiled and you think it's easy. Oh, we'll find a guy. We'll be fine. Okay. You sure about that? Okay. We'll see. We'll see. Hoodie Jube, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Hoodie Jube writes, Dennis Allen is head coach. Move Chris Richard to DC and Pete Carmichael to OC. Bring in Joe Brady to help the offense out as well. That's what I want to see. That would be perfect. In a perfect world, that's what they would do to keep everything in-house. Joe Brady was in New Orleans before he went to LSU. You could bring him back. He can help with the offense, as you just mentioned. And all of that makes a ton of sense, but that's too much like right. That's never how it goes. Fans usually have a great perspective on how things should or shouldn't go. But a lot of times owners have a totally different perspective on how they want to do things. Usually they want the big hire. They want the big name. They want the big splash. So generally speaking, when a head coach is gone, his whole entire staff is also gone. So it would be in the best interest of the Saints to keep it in-house. That will give you the best chance to transition away from a guy that's been there for over 15 years. That'll give you the best chance. But I don't know if that's what they're going to do. But you're on to something, Hoodie Jube. I think that's the best mode of transitioning away from Sean Payton. But I just don't see them doing that. We'll see what happens. Thank you for that super chat, Hoodie Jube. Got another comment here. Let's see. Rich says, with you being a Notre Dame and Washington fan, are you the best person to be asked this question? Does Kyle Hamilton give you 21 vibes? No, he does not give me 21 vibes. No player will give me 21 vibes. And if I see it, I'll tell you immediately, oh my God. But Sean Taylor was built different. Like, first of all, Sean Taylor was built like a linebacker. When you see him, he was big, he was intimidating. That's not Kyle Hamilton. He's long and slinky. He looks like a receiver at 6'4", let's call him 210, maybe 215, but he looks like a cornerback / a big corner / wide receiver. He doesn't look like a safety, like a physically imposing safety. That doesn't mean you can't hit, and he will hit you. He's not afraid to come up and hit you, but Sean Taylor was a one-of-a-kind specimen. I mean, there was a complete highlight reel of Sean Taylor destroying college football players, just hitting them, not even making plays on the ball. And there were several plays in college where he made plays on the ball. But there was a whole highlight reel. PK Sam is everybody's favorite. That's the one no one will ever forget. He hit PK Sam so hard, the man did a front somersault, double dismount, twist in the air, and the ball went flying. Okay? No one will ever forget that. Kyle Hamilton ain't doing that to nobody. And I know the game's changed, but he's not built that way. He is more of a red line to red line guy. He's got the speed to be able to get anywhere on the field. He's got great ball skills. He can make plays on the football. He's got really good instincts. I think he can get better in that department. He's not afraid to hit, but he's also not the most ferocious hitter. He's a really good football player, a guy that I think comes in and immediately upgrades your safety position in your back end. But he is by no means Sean Taylor. Let's see. F. Altus writes, if Saints going to blow it up this offseason, can I get Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Mike Thomas, and Marcus Williams? Not all, but even one will satisfy my hunger for Saints carcass. Marcus Williams is on a franchise tag, so he will be available. I don't think they'll be in a position to re-sign him. Cam Jordan and Demario Davis don't fit the timeline. They're old players. So you're not looking to add those guys. I think they're both either north of 30 or right around 30 years old. And Michael Thomas, those are the types of guys I want as far away from my football team as possible. Those are the guys that I'm not sure if they're all in. And they're eccentric. Let's call it that. He's eccentric. Marcus Williams would be the guy, even though Demario Davis is still a beast. Cam Jordan is still a beast. Marcus Williams would be the guy that I'd be side-eyeing, like, hey, you done with that? Because if you're done with that, I'll take it. That's the guy I'm looking at and say, hey, if you're done with that, I'll take it off your hands. Excuse me. I already read that. Let's see if we got another super chat. Feel like we do. We may not. Yes, we do have another super chat. And it's from Hoodie Jube. Thank you for the super chat once again. Greatly appreciate you, Hoodie Jube, who writes, praying for praying for Talking It Up, future collab. I'm a Saints YouTuber. I told you, just hit me up in the DM. Hit me up in the DM, and I would try to respond. Sometimes some people that I don't follow, Twitter does a good job of filtering things out. But also, if I'm not following you, and you DM me, it'll put it in a different category, and I have to actually go in there. And sometimes I forget. But just DM me. Hit me up and see if we can't iron something out and make something happen. Schedule is crazy. It's hectic, as you could imagine. But, if I can carve out some time, I will. So just hit me up. Appreciate you, Hoodie Jupe. Let's get to some more comments. Let me answer something real quick. So I saw this a bunch of times. I saw it in the comment section of the last podcast episode. I saw it in the comment section of the actual video that I did overtime of the Bucks Rams game, and people kept saying, "How do you let Cooper Kupp get that wide open at the end of the game?" Fair question. First of all, the Bucks have an aggressive defensive coordinator, and me and my dad were having this conversation yesterday, and I said, "Boss, it's like with these coordinators at the end of ball games, it's one or the other. They're at one end of the spectrum or the other. They can't be in the middle. There's no middle ground, no happy medium for these coordinators. Either you're Greg Williams, you're Todd Bowles, you're Martin Winkdale or Wink Martindale, and you're going balls to the wall, cover zero blitz, and let the chips fall where they may. And a lot of times you get your ass whooped doing that. And then there are the coordinators like the, Bills with Leslie Frazier with 13 seconds playing 20 yards off and giving up these easy, soft, coverages where you're giving up 20 yards a pop to let the Chiefs get in the field goal range. And I'm like, there's a happy medium. My thing is just play the same defense that got you to the position that you're in. If there's 13 seconds on the clock, why not come up and press at the line of scrimmage? Because I'm only rushing 3. Mahomes, he doesn't want to run it. He doesn't want to extend the play. They don't have time for that shit. So you rush 3, you press man across the board. All right. And if they get in a stack formation so you can't press, well, you still up close. So if they throw a little screen, that shit ain't going nowhere, right? But then you got defenders behind those guys, and they can play as far back as they like. And you got a second little wave. For me, I'd have 3 across the back line, and they could be 40 yards off. All right. You don't want anything behind you. I get it. So 3 across the back line. In front of them, I'm going to have 2 guys in that middle area, just in case these frontline guys fall the hell asleep. I got 2 guys behind them. So that's 5 defenders, right? They're probably 20 yards off. And then the rest of my defense is going to be consisted of 3 guys rushing and the other 3 in coverage. Up close pressing. And again, if I need to take another guy away from the rush and only rush 2, so be it. Because again, time isn't a problem. If Mahomes doesn't want to stand back there, no quarterback has time to stand back there all day. So if I take another guy away and I got 4 guys in coverage, 2 guys rushing, 2 in the middle, 3 deep, you're not getting no quick, easy completion with nobody around. I don't understand why teams go so soft. So in the case of the Bucks, Todd Bowles is an aggressive defensive coordinator by nature. That's all he knows. And with the game on the line, he wasn't going to hit the brakes. Oh, it's full throttle. I'm stepping on the gas. All right, I'm going to see if Matthew Stafford is about that life. Does he really want this smoke? And he came after him. And I don't have a problem with Todd Bowles coming after him. I have a problem with the way he came after him. Don't come after him with a corner blitz. Don't come with a cat blitz, at that time where you're leaving Cooper Kupp one-on-one with a safety. That said, your safety is 25 yards off. He sees Cooper Kupp coming at him full speed, and he's still flat-footed. Why? Because he thought Cooper Kupp was going to break the route off in front of him. He didn't want to bail too soon. Cooper Kupp breaks it off, and now he's catching the football around, the 45-yard line and getting close to field goal range. So he thought he was doing the right thing. No. He didn't say they're not going over the top. Not in this situation. They're going for the chunk play. They're going for the 25, 30-yard completion, not the 50-yard completion over my head. And he got caught up. Got you feeling it? Caught up. I don't know what it is, But that DB had it twisted. He was so caught up. What happened was he came with a cat blitz, leaving Cooper Kupp one-on-one with Antoine Winfield Jr., and he misjudged Cooper Kupp's speed and what he was going to do, and Cooper Kupp ran right by him. That's how he got wide open. Don't blitz your corner there in that situation. You can blitz. I'm not telling you not to blitz. Blitz your linebackers. Don't blitz the corner in that situation. He did, and he paid for it. That's how he got wide open. Anyway, I digress. We stopped and left off in the comment section here. Kevin, the PRF, writes, all these mock drafts are as varied as I've seen. Some have us taking the first QB. Some have 3 QBs going ahead of us. Which way do you think it go? I told you, generally with the quarterbacks, they get pushed up. So more likely than not, it would be the latter, where 3 quarterbacks go before we even get a chance to sniff, even though no quarterback to me deserves to go higher than 5. But when you've got low supply and high demand, that's what happens. Okay. And right now there are about 7 teams that need quarterbacks, and we're one of them. So because there's such low quantity and such low supply, and there's a very hefty demand, you're going to see some teams get aggressive. Pittsburgh may get aggressive. Denver may get aggressive. There are teams out there. Obviously, we might get aggressive. Who knows? We'll see what we decide to do. But, there are teams out there that have decisions to make. I mean, we still don't know what this offseason is going to hold for us, but we don't know how the Indianapolis Colts truly feel about Carson Wentz. They may say, you know what, to hell with him. Let's try and do this all over again. We don't know what the Vikings are going to do. They can move on from Kirk Cousins and decide to go in a different direction. There's a lot of teams out there. We don't know what the Raiders are going to do. I don't think they're going to do anything, Same with the Browns. I don't think they're going to do anything but hold on to their quarterback. But there are a number of teams that are still looking. The Houston Texans may not be sold on Davis Mills. They may be. But they don't have a first-round pick, so it don't really matter what the hell they decide to do. They don't have shit, so they can't make a move even if they wanted to. The Detroit Lions may be saying, all right, we've seen enough of Jared Goff. That's cool. He can be the stopgap, but we need to get a young boy. And they have the very first pick in the draft, so they can, decide what they want to do. So we'll see what happens. They may say, we'll take an edge rusher. We'll roll with Jared Goff. This isn't a good enough draft class to be taking a quarterback this early, passing up on elite talent somewhere else on the field. But again, we see this every single year where you look around and you say, wow, these quarterbacks are going off the board really fast, just like tackle. These tackles are going like hotcakes. Everybody needs one. There's low supply, high demand. I could see 3 quarterbacks going a lot higher. And you never want to do, when you start reaching for quarterbacks earlier than you should, you end up with a draft like the 2011 draft with Blaine Gabbert, Jake Locker, and Christian Ponder. That's what happens. This draft class looks exactly like that one, except there's no Cam Newton at the top of this draft, like there was that draft. But when teams are desperate, that's what happens. You get Jake Locker, Christian Ponder, and Blaine Gabbert, and they get pushed up. And that's what this draft looks like. That's what this draft reminds me of, is a draft where you look, Kenny Pickett may be the only guy worthy. And I'm not huge on Kenny Pickett. I'm not sold on Kenny Pickett being anything more than a marginal NFL starting quarterback. So when you look at the grand scheme of things and what was done, and I still got some more work to do on Kenny Pickett, but my initial findings, I'm not blown away. But again, I got more film to comb through. And a lot of it is the good stuff. So I'm going to get to it and see if he can change my mind a bit. But at the end of the day, I can see 3 quarterbacks going a lot higher than they have any business going. And, that's how it goes. I think NFL teams are smart enough to know that we don't need to push the envelope on the quarterback position if there's nothing there worth going after. I think the 2019 draft is a good example of teams saying, I'm good. I'm good. I think that Daniel Jones was a knee-jerk reaction by the Giants to, being scared somebody else was going to take him. And I think the rest of the league was going to pass on both Dwayne Haskins and Drew Lock in the first round. If we don't take Dwayne Haskins at 15, I think he gets the Drew Lock treatment. I think he falls out of the first round. And I think the rest of the league knew that neither one of those dudes were legitimate starting NFL quarterbacks, and they were going to pass. And I'm not saying that that's what this crop of quarterbacks are going to be, but they give me those vibes. So we'll see what happens. Sindeko, right? It's pretty much official now. The NFC South will be the worst division in football in 2022. Book it. We're all just waiting for Brady retirement announcement to really cement it. I don't think he's going to retire. That's the thing. If he does, you're right. Your division probably falls like a rock, because the Saints stink. The Bucs would then stink. The Panthers stink. And the Falcons might be the best team in the division. Crazy as that sounds, they may be the one with the most stability at this point. Even though they just changed head coaches last offseason. They may have the most stability. So we'll see. I don't see Tom Brady hanging it up. So we'll see about that, Sindeko. Let's see where we are. Richie writes, NFL can't change the OT rules in the sense of player getting injured. Also, stats and records been broken, bonuses been made, owners spend more money. They're not going to change the overtime rules. Yeah, they're not going to change the overtime rules. And it doesn't make sense for them to change it either. And to your point, player safety, they talked about player safety, which is why they wanted to, lower the amount of time in overtime in the regular season. Well, then if you start changing and tinkering the rules, you're making overtime longer. That's defeating the whole point of you altering the overtime rules to begin with. And I get it. It's just for the postseason. It's not for the regular season. It doesn't matter. If you're really concerned about player safety, then the rules need to stay the way they are. And as you mentioned too, and I didn't even take this into consideration, but obviously the more football that's played, the more stats are accumulated. The more stats that are accumulated, as you mentioned, the more bonuses get paid out in incentives. So, yeah, I mean, all that stuff you could take a look at. I think at the end of the day, they just don't need to change it. I don't think they will. So we'll see what happens. Got another super chat. Let's see where we are. I think I saw one down here. Yes, I did. So this next one is from Jeremiah Butler. Thank you for the super chat, Jeremiah. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, we got coaches / QBs flying all around the league, everywhere. And the QB stuff hasn't even started yet. Okay, wait till one of these boys gets traded or cut, and then the real fun begins. Remember last year when that first domino hit, once Carson Wentz got traded from the Eagles to the Colts, and everything kind of just set off a chain reaction. Like, okay, let's go ahead and get our guy now. And that's when you saw the Stafford deal. And then that's when the rumors of Deshaun Watson started coming, and Aaron Rodgers started coming, and Russell Wilson started coming. And it got crazy, So it'll be interesting to see if one move sets off a chain reaction, because the prevailing thought is the 49ers are going to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. They're probably going to have to release him. Don't know what the cap ramifications behind that are, but I don't see anybody trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay. Despite getting to the NFC Championship game, everybody knows he's a passenger. He is not a driver in this 49ers vehicle right now. So the prevailing thought is they're going to have to cut him loose. Somebody's going to sign him. Obviously. I mean, everybody's not going to be able to land a quarterback. So you want to have a veteran. And even if you still plan on getting a rookie, you can sign a Jimmy Garoppolo and still get you a rookie quarterback. Just like the 49ers had Garoppolo be the bridge, and now they're going to move on to Trey Lance. So at the end of the day, it's going to get really interesting. What do the Vikings do with Kirk Cousins? You know, what do the Seahawks do, if anything, with Russell Wilson? What does Vegas do with Derek Carr? Again, I don't think any of these quarterbacks are going anywhere. Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, I don't think he's going anywhere. But there is a discussion to be had with all of these teams and their respective quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, what does he do? Does he retire? Does he move on? Again, these are all questions for this offseason. It could get crazy, or nothing could happen. And all these quarterbacks could stay put, and we could be having a conversation about much to do about nothing. So we'll see what happens. Got another super chat. This one is from Sindeko. Thank you for the super chat. Sindeko, who writes, playoff overtime revision. First field goal rule stays, okay? First TD is awarded 7 points, no PAT. Opponents must score a touchdown, 6 points, and attempt 2 from the 5. But see, this is the thing. You just penalized the team that scored first by automatically giving them 7. And now what if the team that gets the ball second gets the 2-point conversion? They win the game? You just penalize the team that scored first. So that doesn't work. I thought about something like that, but again, you're penalized. You can't penalize the team that wins the toss and scores first by putting them in a box that they can't then get themselves out of. So if you just give them 7 points, then you could do it the other way around and say, hey, you automatically get 8 points and the other team has to score a touchdown and then they ought to go for 2. That's your benefit of winning the toss. But then again, this is my problem with this whole thing, is if you then do that and then the Bills come back after the Chiefs get their 8-point touchdown, and then the Bills come get the touchdown, get the 2-point conversion, we're tied again. We're doing it again. And we're just starting overtime all over again. No. And you can't penalize the team that gets the ball first in overtime for scoring and winning the toss. That's what you're doing by giving the other team a chance to go for 2 and beat them. So there's no way to fix this. I'm still listening. If anybody else has any suggestions like that one, that's a different one, but it doesn't work. I'm listening. I'm all ears. But this is why you can't change it. Just leave it the way it is. Thank you for the super chat, Sindeko. Let's see. Jeremiah Butler, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for doubling up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Jeremiah Butler, who writes, laughing my ass off at people trying to change the OT rules. It's designed to declare a winner, not be another game. You got 60 minutes to avoid OT. Exactly. And once we get to overtime, it's not supposed to be fair. They made it as fair as they could with the field goal addendum that they put in. Okay. They made it as fair as they could by saying you won't lose in overtime on a first possession field goal. That's the best we can do. You know what? I like that compromise. Okay. You can't lose the game on an opening possession field goal. After that, all bets are off. Okay. It's sudden death after that. Cool. I love it. But again, if they score a touchdown, the game is over. There should be no more talk of each team should get, and then what? And then what? What are we going to just keep going back? They score a touchdown. They score a touchdown. Got to go for 2 now. They got the 2-point conversion. They got the 2-point conversion. You're just going to keep going? That's dumb. That's dumb. No, both teams shouldn't possess the football. Get a stop. Force a field goal or get a stop or force a turnover. All right. We'll take 2 more comments. I think we'll take 2 more and we'll move on. Got a super chat. Let's take that. Matthew, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I like Hurd's idea that the visiting team gets to decide, no coin toss. Teams can adjust play accordingly if they know the visitor gets to decide. I don't like that. And I've heard something like that previously. That's dumb. I don't like the idea of somebody just getting to choose randomly. The visitor gets to choose. I've also heard, that, the visitor can choose, or whoever wins the coin toss can choose, who gets the ball and from where and this, that, and the third. I think Chris Cooley at one point had this crazy proposal that he had come up with. It was confusing. There is no fix to this. Okay, there's no fix to this. And now you're penalizing the home team. They're the visitors. They're the visitors, so we got to show them some respect, so they get to choose. No, here's a coin. It's got a heads. It's got a tails. You're the visitor. This is the perk you get for being on the road. You get to decide heads or tails. You win, you get to decide if you want the ball or you want to defend. You lose, the home team then gets to decide whether they want to receive or defer. So that is the benefit. Okay, you don't get to just select because you're the road team. That's bullshit. I don't like that either. I don't think that's a good idea either. Thank you for the super chat, Matthew. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, let me drop these gems on your melon. You know what it is. Let me drop this gem on your melon. You know what it is. Open your mind. You gotta open your mind, because if you don't have your mind open, then you can't receive the gem that's trying to be dropped on your melon. So it all makes sense. You know what it is, Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. So let's move on to our final segment and garbage time. All right, so I want to just quickly take a look at the upcoming games. I'm not going to spend any time on them. I just want to briefly give you what I think is going to take place. We will get into a much deeper discussion, on Friday, obviously. But me and Boss were talking, and I asked him what he thought, and I asked him what his postseason record was, because he works on Saturday, so I wasn't able to get up with him and talk before a wild card or a divisional round weekend. But he said, man, I would have lost a whole bunch of games. He's a Dallas fan, so he'd have picked Dallas. He thought that he would have picked Green Bay. They lost, obviously. He said he would have picked the Titans, so he would have been 7-3 right now. And I told him I knew the Titans were going to lose. And he said, really? You thought you knew they were? I said, I knew they were going to lose, and I laid it out for him. And I asked his opinion on, the championship weekend and what he thought was going to happen. And he's picking San Francisco. He's like, until the Rams beat them, I'm sticking with San Francisco. They were down 17-0 and came back and won. I'm picking San Francisco. I said, they the boogeyman right now. All right. They're the boogeyman. It's like monsters. They open the closet and they see the 49ers do the Rams, and they come out, and they scare them every time. I'm not doing that. But I think that game's going to be super close, and it could go either way, and the 49ers can win that game. It's the best possible matchup for the 49ers. On the other hand, he said that he's taking the Chiefs, obviously, but he thinks it's going to be a close game. I said, I think it's going to be a boat race. I think it's going to be a pure, unadulterated ass whooping. Yep, I know the Chiefs lost to this same Bengals team not that long ago, probably like a month ago. I'm aware. I'm also aware that game was a regular season game. That game was in the jungle. This is postseason football, and the Bengals have no idea what they're getting themselves into. This is big boy football. You don't get sacked 9 times against the Chiefs and think you're going to win 19-16. You don't lose opportunities to kick field goals because your quarterback on 3rd and 5 runs backwards 17 yards, and now you have to punt and think you're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They are going to get their asses whooped in this game. That is my initial reaction to the two games. I think the first game is a total boat race. And then the nightcap is going to be a nail biter that the Rams win and you get Chiefs-Rams in the Super Bowl. That's what I think is going to happen. But I'm going to tell you exactly why I think we're going to get to that conclusion tomorrow. So you don't have to wait for my money picks. You know what the deal is. Now I'm just going to tell you how I got to those conclusions tomorrow. But in any event, we'll see what happens. That's going to do it for me. Your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me here on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. This was a fun show. Every time we chop it up on Wednesdays, it's fun. You guys bring it, and I appreciate y'all. And so Let's knock. I got a couple more minutes. Let's knock one or two more of these out. Atlas says OT rules are pretty easy to solve. Have them play an OT quarter, and who has the most points at the end of the quarter wins. Repeat until a winner. That's exactly what they're trying to avoid. More football is bad. They want less football, so they don't want a whole quarter. And then if it's tied at the end of that quarter, they have another quarter. Like they don't want the Ravens and the Broncos in 2012. They don't want to see that ever happen again. If they can avoid that, that's what they're looking to do. So that won't work at all. Rich says gets 5 plays. So I'm assuming that there was a comment before this. All right, he says it's in Madden mode, superstar KO, and it's called tug of war. When you get to OT, you start at the 50. You get one play where you finish one play, and where you finish, the other team picks up once each team gets 5 plays each. Whoever side it's on wins. If you score a touchdown at any point, you win, no field goals. Do you need any clarification, any questions? Yeah, I'm confused. I think I get it, but I'm not quite sure. But I don't know. I don't get it. I'm a little lost. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. Maybe I'm just old. I remember Madden in the much simpler days when there weren't all of those different things you could do. Anyway, overtime, I said all of that to say this. Overtime is fine just the way it is. End of discussion. And that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the Louie T Network podcast. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. As always, I thank you guys for joining me. Look forward to chopping it up with you again on Friday. Hopefully, it's supposed to be crazy weather-wise, and I got some things to do. Hopefully, I'm able to do the podcast on Friday. The goal is to do it on Friday. But I've given you my predictions in the event that I'm not able to do it on Friday. But the goal is to do my podcast on Friday. So we'll see what happens. But if you're a Washington fan, I will see you tomorrow for Washington Football Report Live. For the rest of you, hopefully I'll see you on Friday. If not, you'll see me on Sunday for OT of both championship games, and we'll break them down and talk about the two teams moving on to the Super Bowl in LA. That's going to do it for me. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. You know what it is. God bless.
Louie.